Hey guys, this is another episode of Oil Change Business, How I See It. Been really grappling with how I want to take the direction of this video series that I'm going to do because I have to keep a pretty strict wall between the operations side of the Quick Lube business, the franchise side of the Quick Lube business, my personal opinions, and make sure that everything meshes together in some fashion. Um, it would be great to have a more interactive experience when it comes to this, but in the sense that unless I were to have other operators come on and be a part of the conversations, it would be really difficult. And I certainly can explore trying to do podcast style interviews with other Quick Lube owners, but for right now, I think I'm just gonna whatever's at the top of my mind at the time that I'm able to do these videos based on my schedule. I'm just going to talk about it and give my opinion. And that's the whole point of how I see it. So I have my screen shared right now. And I actually have begun consulting in the Quick Lube space. And so I have always had an eye on what the publicly traded players in the space do. And there's only a handful of them. And so it's pretty easy to keep ties, keep eyes on them. And so Valvoline is probably the easiest because they have that the less holding company style business model, whereas Driven Brands carries a multitude of brands, and then Shell doesn't even mention Jiffy Lube on its quarterly calls, so it's really tough to get information about Jiffy Lube that's not through the franchise disclosure document. But right now, April 13th, 2022, just to give some color on what we're seeing right now, we've had historic price increases in our space. And I think this is going to lead to a lot of operators, especially independent operators, who are going to be ready to just call it quits. And it's going to lead to a mass consolidation within the industry. Only 2 times in the past decade has there been a price decrease after a price increase. And only a handful of times have they announced actually reverting a price increase. So once a price is increased, it's typically there to stay permanently, regardless of price. As you can see from this chart, price of oil has been in this territory previously, and it has not seen as significant of price increases or as rapid of price increases as we're seeing right now. Sam Mitchell, who is the CEO of Valvoline, has announced that they're going to do price increasing on the retail services to capture some of that margin back, but we're pushing up against the $99 synthetic oil change, and there's going to be a lot of hesitancy for the consumer base, in my opinion, to be okay with a oil change base price being over that $100 price point. And so it's going to be interesting to see, because typically in the past, whatever way Jiffy Lube goes, the market goes, but Jiffy Lube has certainly shifted away from the Quick Lube only market, and Valvoline, on the other hand, seems to be tripling down on fast oil changes. And so it'll be interesting to see if they start to move the market. A lot of the independents over the years have started tying in other services to make up that revenue from the interval decrease from back when oil changes were every 2,000 miles to now, the majority of cars going 5,000 miles in between oil changes. So it's interesting to see who's going to actually be the one to move the market in regards to these types of behaviors. Everyone has announced more price increases in base oil. And that this is going to be the first of probably a handful. As you can see from this chart I have up, these are the major blenders. Oil is blended. It's not a refining process. It's a little bit different, and there is some nuance there, but the end finished product comes from a handful of blenders, and they can really move the market. Things that go into this process are transportation costs, corrugated plastic, things of that nature. And so that very end product goes through a much more grueling process than some of the less, I guess, sophisticated products in the petroleum space. And so the price increases disproportionately affect the quick lube market, which then gets passed on to us. And we're really the last line as the retailers. And when the prices increase, we have to capture that margin. Otherwise, it's not worth it to be in business. It'll be interesting to see what this mass consolidation within the space does. And we've been going through this consolidation for quite some time now, because the acquisitions, whether it's Valvoline off, trying to buy chains of 5 or more, Take 5 driven brands. I haven't seen much in the acquisition space from Jiffy Lube, but the overall prevailing wisdom is once the market gets completely saturated through these larger brands, the independents are going to get squeezed out. And this industry has really only been around since 1980. And probably 1985 when it became more of a mainstream industry. And so you have guys, you have operators in this space who are probably have been working for the past 40 years, and they're ready to get out. These buildings are very difficult to repurpose, and there's going to be inventory of buildings, and they're going to get gobbled up by Valvoline if they think they can turn them. Or, I haven't seen much of Take 5 going into vacants, but there's some other players in the space that are certainly making a push. There's, some larger chains that are below what I would consider the big three, which is Jiffy Lube, Take 5, and Valvoline, that are still active, such as Grease Monkey, Express, Oil Change, etc. But for right now, I'm sitting tight with the Costa Oil brand, where we're still at $79.99. I want to hold on to that as much as possible. One of the benefits of being the sole owner of the company is, I have that ability to control that price. I don't have shareholders, breathing down my neck to try to force price increases. And so as our franchisees start to open, there's going to be pressure on them. There's going to be market pressure for them to increase their ticket average. And we don't dictate price from the franchise level, the franchisor level. So our franchisees can have market price. I do think that from a customer acquisition standpoint, when you don't have the brand equity that some of these other players have, it's important to be in full-on customer acquisition mode. And that means discounting and figuring out ways to get people in the door. But that comes at the expense of margin, and you need to make money to be in business. And so I think there's opportunity coming for some of those who are willing to take the risk. And then I think the industry will continue down this consolidation path, which will then create more opportunity for those willing to take that risk. And if no one steps up and takes that risk, then we're going to be beholden to a few handful of brands that will get to dictate, and we'll see a $149 base oil change price, not in the near future. If that is the path that happens, we need the competition to keep these oil change prices in place, at least relatively stable. Otherwise, it's going to get large quickly. And we've seen that with the inflation that's happened recently. There's pushback on the consumer level. There's a certain level of complacency and just accepting it, but then there's a certain level of people that are just fed up with this inflationary pressure that has created more expense everywhere. It's troubling. And so it's become more important than ever for retail to staff correctly and treat its people right, to avoid the lack of continuity in staffing, which leads to a worse service. The service has to be a premium service. If you're going to command a premium price for your service, you have to have a premium service. So it's important that that continuity of staffing be there. And the only way to do that is to treat your people right and take care of their wants and needs. And I think, I went off on a tangent there that went away from the original direction that I was thinking of going with this video. But at the end of the day, it's important to remember that we are a service industry, and the people that deliver the service are the people inside the stores. It's not the people in the back office. It's not the people, that are in the call centers. It's the people inside the stores that have the difficult job of actually being under the hot cars and near the exhaust pipes and near the intake and near the hot oil and getting dirty on a daily basis, and those people need to be taken care of. So I am looking forward to the opportunity to grow our brand, and I think that we're positioned well to do that. And I'll talk a little bit in the next video about electric vehicles, I think, because I think that should have its own category. But I think with the topic of the day being inflation, this was a good way to kind of create a direction for this video. So thanks everybody. Any questions? My email is Costa, COSTA at CostaOils.com, CostaOils.com. Feel free to reach out. I'm also on Twitter, Costa Capo, and we have all our company social media everywhere. It's an easy way to reach me because I still monitor all of that. So thanks everybody.